this next very short session. We're absolutely delighted that Beverley Barlow, Senior HMI Inspector, is with us. Beverley leads on various things in Cheshire and Greater Manchester, about which she'll tell you more. She's a highly experienced ex-senior leader in colleges and has also said, very kindly, that she's prepared to take a few questions at the end. And that also means that, with your permission, we might extend from 15 into, say, more like 20 minutes, even 22 minutes. We'll see how we go, because the next strand sessions have a little bit of flexibility built into them. Please welcome Bev.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's really nice to see and recognise so many people here. What I'm going to do for 15 minutes is give you a quick gallop through governance and the Common Inspection Framework of 2012. In our annual report last year, it outlines the importance of accountability, leadership and governance. Weak accountability are often common failings in poor provision, and one of the most significant reasons why providers don't improve. 8 of the 13 colleges that we judged to be inadequate in 11-12 had inadequate governance. In these colleges, governing bodies had not monitored the college's performance in sufficient detail or provided the right kind of challenge to leaders. Whereas the 2 general FE colleges and the 8 adult skills providers that improved to outstanding, they had very strong systems of accountability. In the outstanding providers, leaders, governors and senior managers were accountable for the specific aspects of provision, from monitoring the use of initial assessments to the scrutiny of information on learners' progress and achievement. Governors had a clear role in ensuring that the strategic direction of the organisation was focused on delivering positive results for learners. Our new framework doesn't grade governance separately, but it's no less important. In order to make the first judgment, inspectors will look at the clarity of the vision, the mission and the strategic direction, and how that's being implemented. They'll look at the expectations that our learners are being demonstrated through targets that are ambitious and realistic. Do you, as governors, know how well the targets are met? Are you aware of the changes in the sector? For example, if you take on the growth of subcontracting arrangements, what is the impact of this? What can it have on your provider? You will receive extra funding, but you've also got a significant increased responsibility for the quality of the provision of those subcontractors. To make the second judgment and review that within inspection, inspectors will look at the significant and systematic rigorous performance management systems which procedures are in place to tackle underperformance. Leaders, governors and supervisory bodies need to closely monitor the quality of the experience for learners, including the outcomes and teaching, learning, assessment. What are the key questions we ask governors then on inspection? First of all, with the short notice, some governors may not be available. You need to have plans to ensure governors are represented during the inspection. And also there may be a meeting with the clerk, and sometimes this can be over the telephone. Inspectors will request that the provider supplies evidence of the work of governors and their impact that they're having for learners on the first day of the inspection. The key focus is on learners. The leadership manager will want to see some governors during the inspection. There will be some general questions and also themed questions based on their provider's specific circumstances and any pre-inspection analysis. The inspectors will also review governors' meetings, the board papers and the committee papers, any minutes, and they'll make judgments about the clarity of the information that you as governors are receiving and whether it's supporting you in your role. Things like the data, how often and how frequently do you have information from the college's managers? What about the principals' briefings? Are they clear? Do they help you do your role? Governors will also want to look at whether the governors have an understanding of the college's main strengths and areas to improve. Do you know the most high-performing courses in the college? What are the ones that are underperforming? What strategies are being taken to tackle that underperformance? We'll establish a view as to whether governors work with senior managers in a robust yet positive way to monitor the performance. We'll also look at performance management arrangements with governors and senior post holders, including the principal. Other areas that inspectors will explore are similar to the old framework. They haven't disappeared. We'll look at the makeup of the governing body. Does it reflect the provider's profile in terms of gender and ethnicity? Is there an appropriate mix of relevant skills and expertise? What's the role and involvement of student governors, and are they supported sufficiently well to have an active role? In terms of the second bullet there on the governors monitoring the quality of experience, that's the one that's really moving forward within this framework. What information and data do you get, and how often do you get it? Is there too much? Is there too little? Have you had sufficient training in which to understand that data? Is it timely and accurate? Are governors aware of what success rate measures, value added and progress? And the real key focus as well, this framework, is around progression between the levels of courses in your colleges and also onto the destinations in employment, apprenticeships and higher education. Is the information accessible? Is it being interpreted well enough? Does it enable you to ask the right questions in a challenging and well-informed way? When looking at the papers, inspectors will also look at and talking to clerks and governors, inspectors will look at whether sufficient time is given to different aspects and key issues that are focused on learners. It's more than just looking at the finances and resources. Have governors recognised that there have been dips in standards or any improvements in standards? Is there an awareness through working with managers on how the improvements have been achieved? And do you know how, as governors, underperformance is being tackled? In some of the better colleges that we've seen where governance and leadership and management are judged outstanding, there are frequently links into the curriculum, and governors have curriculum links. In terms of the third bullet, this is about you meeting your legislative duties. Again, do you receive the right annual reports on equality and diversity, safeguarding and health and safety? Is the right information that you need in those reports? Is the data on equality and diversity published as required by legislation on the college's website? Are you aware of the achievement of different groups of learners? This is a critical aspect of equality and diversity, and whether any achievement gaps are widening or are they being successfully narrowed. Last September, we published a survey about how colleges improve. It looks at the key factors that have contributed to sustained high performance or quick improvements in colleges. It looks at the factors which impede improvement and those that are judged to be satisfactory and not improving, or those that are declining. It looks at what lessons can be learnt to help overcome these barriers. The key positive factors that we found were where providers were improving and improving at a rapid rate, there was highly effective staff training at all levels, and good practice was shared effectively across departments. Is that happening in your college? The Professional development was also linked to a sound and robust analysis of performance and productive performance management. And the management information, particularly that relevant to learners' performance, was used very well to motivate and make changes. All of this was undertaken in a culture of critical self-review in which the process of self-assessment brought about improvements. A climate where feedback, both encouraging and critical, was accepted positively and acted on. Is this what your board meetings are like? Are you critical friends, and are your comments acted upon positively? In terms of the role of governors, we saw that they had a wide range of expertise and experience and were highly committed to the success of the college. One chair of governors, when asked what governance looked like, he said, "Our role as governors is not to do, but to make it possible for others to do their jobs. But we have to ask questions and have the information to make the right challenges when needed." In the weaker colleges, we found that there was a superficial or inadequate understanding of the priorities and challenges and problems facing the college. Communications between governors and college leaders and managers were not as strong as they should have been. The training for governors was not sufficient, and there was a lack of understanding about their purpose, roles and responsibilities. Too much emphasis was on finance and property, with the exclusion of key aspects such as learners' outcomes, the quality of teaching and learning, or the curriculum strategy to meet the local needs. We made 2 recommendations relating to governance, both around training governors and also around monitoring their performance. In terms of what we've seen in the first term since the new inspection framework, we found that governors have a key role in establishing accountability mechanisms, including risk assessment and clear early warning indicators. This requires they're well-trained and well-informed and able to ask the right questions, and they have access to performance data and other information about the college's day-to-day work. When this happens, governors are in a position to take collective responsibility to challenge managers and make the right decisions, ensuring that the college's priorities and strategic direction focuses on its learners and the community. One college had a curriculum-linked governor who knew about the targets and progress regarding the quality assurance plan. The governors monitored the progress against those targets, and it was done through very clear report writing that the governor had a very good understanding of. They also self-assessed their own performance against targets that they'd set and monitored. In this way, they knew the college very well, and by asking the right questions, they could look at both the financial and the academic performance rigorously. In high-performing providers, governors have a determination to initiate and monitor changes in policy, procedures and structures to improve the quality of provision and outcomes for learners. The best governing bodies get the balance right between support and challenge. They focus on the key issues that matter to learners, and that's what Ofsted focuses on during our inspections. I just want to take the chance as well to tell you about the role that Ofsted is taking since January of this year in terms of improvements in the learning and skills sector. So since this January, we've got a requires improvement strategy, and we've moved to 8 regions. Each has a director and each has a learning and skills senior HMI. And there are 2 senior HMI in London and the Northwest. This means that colleges and providers that receive a grade 3 since September, i.e. requires improvement, will be given a direct HMI link to support and challenge them to move to good more quickly. These links have already started, and HMI are now working with providers who in the first term gained a grade 3 in their inspection. We're also putting on a series of national conferences. The first of these have been held in London and were focused on teaching, learning and assessment and how you might improve that. One was for colleges and one was for work-based learning, and there's another one in May for community learning and skills providers. These are currently being backed up then in April and May with regional seminars and workshops led by the Senior Learning and Skills HMI. So for example, mine is in the Northwest, our office in Piccadilly Gate on the 10th of May. You will be getting information and emails about the others in the other regions through our contacts in the next week or so. What we're hoping to provide is support and challenge to senior managers and governing bodies, using the expertise and knowledge that HMI have gained through their inspections, signposting you to the good practice that we know about. We'll also be undertaking joint lesson observations on the visits, and some of you may have heard about the data dashboard that was launched last week for school governors, and we're in the process of developing a data dashboard for colleges in the learning and skills sector, and we're hoping to have that up and running by the end of the academic year. Given the variety of provision in the learning and skills sector, it's a bit more complicated than a core curriculum in schools. What all this is getting the providers in the learning and skills sector trying to focus more sharply on moving to good more rapidly. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Bev. We've definitely got 5 minutes and a little more if we need it. Who might like to ask a question? My colleagues are, as ever, poised with microphones. Please just be kind enough to raise a hand and say where you're from, and we'll get going. You've stunned them all. Yes, here. I'm so sorry, there's none so blind. Could you please bring this down here? Thanks. Would you mind standing up just so that we can get you? Thank you very much. And just introduce yourself, please. Thank you.
Joanne Dean, the Assistant Governance Manager and Helpline Advisor at the AOC. I was just wondering, in some inspections the clerk is interviewed and some not. Can you tell me what criteria you use to decide whether or not you're going to speak to the clerk?
That comes within the remit of the Leadership and Management Inspector, and often it will be related to what they see when they look at the Governor's papers and the minutes, and they may have some questions about that, or if they've got some queries about Governor's training or what's happened with that. So it's based around the pre-inspection analysis and also the analysis of the documentation when you're first on site, looking at that on the first day or early on the second day. And sometimes you may have some queries where you'd want to interview the clerk, but no, it doesn't happen in every inspection.
Thank you very much. Is there another colleague on this table here? Thank you. Same thing, if you wouldn't mind standing and...
Okay. Graham Briscoe, I'm here from Telford New College today. Beverley, you slipped in something right at the very end that interests me, and that's the FE dashboard. Knowing a little bit about schools, because I'm on an academy board, this will be available, I presume, in the public domain for everybody to look at?
Yeah.
As somebody who spent a whole career developing KPIs for corporates, I just wondered if somebody else in the audience from the Governor's Council, which may like to comment on how this dashboard is being developed and the possibility of having people from the sector supporting the development of that.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
Within learning and skills, within Ofsted, it is at a very early stage, and we're currently going through the data that we've got and how we can use that in a meaningful and purposeful way, so that that will help you and others to view the provision of a college and its outcomes for learners. But we have also got current principals, managers, other inspectors that are part-time inspectors that work in the sector being involved. But I will take that point back, and I'm sure Matthew Coffey will consider that with interest.
Thank you very much, both. A colleague here. Sorry, just when you thought you could rest for a second.
It's Carol Stott, I'm chair of the AOC. It's really just a point of information. Matthew has already been to talk to the Governors' Council at the AOC about this, and the Governors' Council will be involved and consulted, and we'll be consulting with
we
governors.
Usually consult with
so it's
widely,
just information.
Yeah. Thanks ever so much, that's really helpful. And another colleague over here, just coming down. That's it, if you could put your hand, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Moss Kalbasi from Grantham. Is it getting to a stage where, I mean, you've got the national conferences, which would be very useful when they start happening in our areas. Is it getting to a stage where governors ought to have some minimum compulsory training before they become governors, you know, in certain aspects?
Just sorry, the microphone let us down there. I think it was a question saying, have we reached the time when a certain minimum amount of training would be required, mandatory, compulsory? Thank you.
I mean, I think, and certainly from my time as a senior manager, most governors do get... No, it's fine. Most governors do have quite a comprehensive initial training and induction package, and we're not saying that that should disappear by any means. I think it's about ongoing development of that and looking at the range of skills on each governing body and whether they're right for that particular institution, and making sure you try and get the right people that are aware and know the right questions to ask, and keeping that training up to date. I'm not sure whether there should be some minimum levels of requirements and we can't say that, but the more informed, obviously, the more effective you're going to be in any role, aren't you?
Thank you. Time for another couple of questions if required. Just wave at us if you'd like to ask any more questions. Yes. Table at the front here, please.
Hello, Jeff Hurst from Franklin College. Some of us, we've been talking earlier today about localism and how colleges meet and face up to local needs. Is there a dilemma for inspectors between the national framework and colleges meeting local needs, which may affect some areas of their performance nationally, on a national comparison?
I don't see how there can be a tension in that personally. I think if you are providing the right curriculum and structure and support for the students in your area, their progression and destinations will be more positive. And also, as long as they're monitoring progress and have good outcomes at the end of the college time, then I don't see where the conflict will be in that sense. But it's about working together as well, maybe with other colleges in your area.
Thank you very much. Last question if anybody has one. If not, then maybe we once more put our hands together and thanks Beverley very much for coming. Thank you.